Hello, I'm Jean Duane, Alternative Cook. Welcome to my kitchen. If you're avoiding dairy products or gluten, or if you're eating a diet of low or no cholesterol, this program is for you. I have learned firsthand of the profound impact food can have on the body. I am gluten and dairy intolerant, and I eat a low cholesterol diet. Over the years, I've learned to cook without these ingredients, and I've honed my skills at cooking school and studied many methods. I'll show you how to use whole, unrefined, unprocessed foods, primarily beans and grains, fruits and vegetables, nuts, and of course chocolate, in ways that are pleasing to the palate and fun to prepare. The series of DVDs will show how to cook delicious dishes covering many genres of cuisine. Now, let's get started. In this program, we'll make gluten-free, dairy-free, cholesterol-free chocolate treats. I'll bet you thought that would be impossible, but these treats are rich and wonderful. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce my little friend Cookie.
Hi, Jean. Chocolate's my favorite food.
Me too, Cookie. We'll start with a chocolate cake with a raspberry filling and a ganache icing. These little cakes are fine to serve when entertaining.
I'm thinking of that cake right now.
Then we'll take some of that cake and make chocolate-covered curd-soaked cherry walnut truffles. Perfect for the holidays or parties.
I love chocolate cherry-covered curd-soaked cherry walnut truffles. That's hard to say, isn't it?
It is. Chocolate-covered curd-soaked cherry walnut truffles.
Wow, that was good.
Then we'll glaze some almonds and stuff them into frangelica-soaked dried apricots and dip them into chocolate.
Wow, those sound really good.
We'll make a rich, luscious brownie and a light, puffy chocolate cookie.
I love brownies and cookies after school.
Then we'll make a custard from cashews, which you won't believe you can make, and once you do, you won't believe how good it is.
A custard from cashews?
That's right, Cookie. It's a hit at parties. So, let's get ready to cook. This cake has a soft texture. The chocolate cake makes a nice combination with the raspberry jam filling and the chocolate ganache icing. You'll be proud to serve this to company. With gluten-free baking, smaller goods are less likely to break. I'm using 3 4-inch by 1 3/4-inch springform pans. One little cake serves 2 people, and this recipe makes 6 servings. Or you could make 1 9-inch cake. I have the ingredients pre-measured here. First, we mix the oil and the lecithin together with the whisk attachment. This whips for about 2 to 3 minutes. Look at this. This is your egg substitute, and whipping this makes a lighter cake. Add the wet ingredients now, the water, the sugar, and the vanilla. Either hazelnut flour or almond meal can be used in this cake. These flours are very expensive, but you can reduce the cost by making them yourself. I toasted these hazelnuts for 8 minutes at 350 degrees and let them cool. I use almonds with their skins, but hazelnut skins can be a little bit bitter. So to take off the skins, just rub them in your hands like this. And most of the skins will pop off. Then I put them into a food processor. and process them until they turn into a powder. This is really loud. Now you have hazelnut flour to use in the recipe. In a separate bowl, whisk together the dry ingredients. This cake uses a combination of flours. Sorghum flour, which is used extensively in Africa and India.
It is also known as millet, American brown corn, guinea corn, or Kaffir corn. It is one of the main flours used in the mix of gluten-free flours.
Amaranth flour, an ancient Aztec grain.
It's a complete protein and high in calcium. It has a nut-like flavor and is usually used in combination with several other gluten-free flours in baking.
Hazelnut flour, cocoa powder, baking soda, and just a pinch of salt. I'm going to whisk these together until they're incorporated. Add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients. This looks great. I'll prepare the pans. With some pre-cut parchment paper. And some spray-on oil. And pour the batter into the pans. Gluten-free batters are dry and need to bloom. They need to soak up the liquids before baking. Also, letting them sit before baking yields a lighter product because the leavening is activated longer. Let the filled pans sit on an ice pack for about an hour. These cakes bake at 375 degrees for 35 minutes. With gluten-free baking, the toothpick test to tell if a cake is done does little good. What we look for is the cake to pull away from the sides and to spring back when touched. Those are two indications that the cake is done. For a full-size birthday cake, just triple this recipe and make 3 9-inch layers. Just add 3 teaspoons of xanthan gum or gar gum to the recipe. We'll let these cakes cool in the pans a while and then spring them out on the rack to cool completely. This is a great cake. I can't wait to ice it. Ganache icing makes the cake look like it's covered in a chocolate bar. It's beautiful and looks very professional when finished. The ganache icing and the raspberry filling keep the cake inside moist. We'll turn the cake upside down, which makes the cake perfect and usually eliminates the need to trim it. Cut the cake in half long ways and smear it liberally with raspberry jam. The raspberry jam adds a great taste. And put the top back on. The cake is ready to ice. I'm putting the cutting board on a damp towel so it won't move, and taking tropical source gluten-free, dairy-free chocolate, and I'll chop it into small pieces. And put it into a glass bowl. To make the cashew cream, blend the cashews for just a minute. And then add water. Then heat the mixture in a saucepan to turn it into cashew cream. See how nice and thick this gets. It doesn't take long with this little amount. It's just beautiful. The ratio for ganache is 5 parts chocolate to 4 parts cream. We pour the warm cashew milk cream over the chocolate. And we'll let it sit for about a minute, and then I'll whisk it to make it into the ganache icing. Whisk the chocolate. And then I put it on the top of the cake first, and then bring it down the sides with an offset spatula.
Wow, that cake looks really professional, Jean.
Thanks, Cookie. Let's have a piece. Raspberry with the soft chocolate cake and the rich ganache icing. Chocolate-covered, curd-soaked cherry walnut truffles. These truffles look great and taste great, and they can be given for gifts for special occasions. We start by mixing tahini.
Tahini is ground sesame seeds, which you can buy raw or roasted. If you like the taste of roasted nuts, you'd love the roasted tahini. The raw tahini works best in more neutral dishes, but either works great in recipes. Tahini is high in calcium and is used to add substance to foods. I love tahini.
And cocoa powder and maple syrup. What we're making is a truffle base. We'll microwave this mixture for 1 minute. This is microwaved for 1 minute. Now I'm going to whisk it. Everything is soft and warm. This is a great mix. It can be used as a topping for frozen desserts. It's really good. Now I crumble the petite cakes. These are the petite chocolate cakes that were made in an earlier segment. And mix into the cake crumbs. For a flavor enhancer, I'm adding kirsch and toasted walnuts, and then I'm going to stuff these with kirsch-soaked cherries. So this is a 1/4 cup of kirsch that I'm adding to the cake base. I've toasted these walnuts at 350 degrees for 8 minutes. And now I'm going to chop them, really pound them. be a great job for your 2-year-old. You can enhance with all kinds of ingredients with this. I enhanced with walnuts and kirsch-soaked cherries and some kirsch, but you could also put candied orange and 1/4 cup of orange juice concentrate, or you could chop some almonds and then put a teaspoon of almond extract in, or you could get some Kahlua and some chocolate nibs. That sounds really good, doesn't it? Or you could do frangelica and toasted almonds, or some toasted hazelnuts with the frangelica. Or, well, you could use your imagination. This is a great chance to have some fun and be creative. Once you roll out the balls, then you'll want to refrigerate them. Since I'm going to be molding these in a sort of a small mold, I'm trying to roll these sort of small. These have been in the refrigerator for about an hour, and now they're ready to coat in chocolate.
There are several methods to temper chocolate. Tempered chocolate entails heating it and then cooling it to change the crystal structure, which makes it glossy and crisp. Most candy is made with tempered chocolate.
I've got everything set up here to temper the chocolate. Tempering the chocolate makes the chocolate crisp and shiny. The T's of tempering are time, temperature, and agitation. So what I have here is my cutting board to cut the chocolate, a double boiler that's on, a silpat with a crom, and a heating pad that's covered in a towel. To temper the chocolate, first we chop it. Pour the chopped chocolate into the double boiler. This is a chocolate thermometer, and it has a different gauge on it than a candy thermometer. Stir the chocolate with the thermometer until it reaches 110 degrees. It's already 110 degrees. You take the chocolate off of the heat and put it on a heating pad. Take 1/3 of the chocolate and place it on a silpat. This is the agitation part. I'm going to agitate it with the crom until it gets dull. This is also the time part. Time, temperature, and agitation. It takes time. See how this is turned dull? This is ready now to add back into our main chocolate bowl. And then mix it into this chocolate. This chocolate is tempered and ready to put into the molds. Once the chocolate is tempered, put it on a heating pad wrapped in a towel and try to keep it at about 86 to 90 degrees. That allows you to have some time to work with it. You can either mold these truffles or you can roll them. I'll show both ways. First, to mold them, take a mold. This is a little candy mold. And put about a teaspoon of chocolate in each mold. Do a few. I'm going to use a knife to smear the chocolate around the mold. And what I want to do is just coat the perimeter, trying to get it right up to the edge of the top of the mold. Once you've coated the perimeter of the mold with chocolate, we'll put it in the refrigerator for about 5 minutes until the chocolate sets up. While we're waiting for the chocolate to set up, I'll show you how to roll the truffles. So first I put a little bit of the chocolate in the palm of my hand. Take a truffle and roll it in the chocolate. till it's coated, and then just drop it off on the plate. This mold has been in the refrigerator for about 4 or 5 minutes, just until the chocolate sets up. So now I take the stuffed truffle base, it's stuffed with the cherry, and just press it down into the mold. Take some chocolate and just spoon it on each one of these. This is the bottom of the truffle. And of course, the neater you are, the better. I wasn't very neat on that one. What you want to try to do is get all the sides to touch so that there's a seal. These are ready now to put in the refrigerator for about an hour, because you really want the chocolate to set up and even contract so that you'll be able to pop them out of the mold. I popped these out of the mold. See how shiny they are? Tempering the chocolate makes the chocolate less likely to bloom. These are easy to make and great to give as gifts or to make for special occasions. Frangelica-soaked dried apricots are one of my favorite foods. Well, they work for several things. You can use them for that special someone to get in the mood, or you can take them hiking. I know it's one extreme or the other, but they really do work for both things. The first thing we do is get everything in place. We have our rack, we have our forks to separate, we have our spoon to stir, and we have our thermometer. We start off with a 1/4 cup of agave nectar. I like agave nectar because it's really sweet and it's pure. Pour that in. And then I will put in the thermometer. And I'm going to try to be careful so that it doesn't touch the bottom. It's just barely above the bottom of the surface of the pan.
Agave nectar is extracted from the agave cactus. It's very sweet, but it's low on the glycemic index. It doesn't significantly raise blood sugar levels and is used a lot by people with diabetes and hyperglycemia. Agave nectar has the same properties as sugar when cooking. I like the taste better than rice syrup or honey.
Okay, it's finally up to 234 degrees. It takes a few minutes. And now I'm going to add the almonds. Now these are raw almonds, but they'll toast in the process. So between the time they go from 234 degrees to 305 degrees, they get toasted. Okay, it's reached 305 degrees, and now I'm going to pour it out on the rack. It's very hot, you have to be really careful. As they cool, the almonds will seal, and they'll work a little bit better when we stuff them into the apricot if they're sealed like this. These are great just to eat too. It's a nice way to eat an almond. These drunk little apricots have been soaking in frangelica for the past 24 hours. I use the unsulfured kind because I like the way they taste. We'll dry them on a paper towel, cut off the tops, and stuff them with a glazed almond. We'll insert skewers to make them easy to dip. We're going to make 12 chocolate-covered apricots today, and each apricot is roughly one of these small squares. And I'm using Tropical Source gluten-free, dairy-free chocolate. And I'm chopping it pretty small so that I can melt it in a double boiler.
A double boiler is a pan with boiling water in the bottom and a clean, dry pan stacked on top.
And now we put the chocolate in the double boiler. The chocolate's melted, and now we're going to dip the apricots into the chocolate. And I'm putting them in styrofoam so they can dry. The time has come. My favorite. Cookies are great to serve for an after-school snack or a weekday dinner dessert. Chocolate cookies with sugar on top. Doesn't that sound like fun? If you use egg whites, this recipe calls for 3. I am making the vegan version of this recipe, and I'll show how to make a flax mix. Flax mix can be used instead of eggs or egg whites. If you practice food combining, the flax mix yields a starch cookie. Let's make the flax mix and reserve it for future use. I'm adding the flaxseed to the blender and blend them a little bit. And then adding the water until it becomes thick. See how nice and thick this got? This is a great binder and an egg substitute in any kind of baked recipe.
Flaxseed is high in omega-3 fats and is used by people trying to reduce their cholesterol and triglycerides. It's high in antioxidants and fiber. Flax seeds need to be ground to release the oils in them.
This recipe also calls for cashew milk, so I'm going to make some cashew milk now and then set it aside for future use. I'll put the cashews in the blender first and blend them for just a little while. Then I'll add the water and blend until the milk is pretty smooth. You could make a milk out of almonds. You could blanch them and then skin them, or pinyon nuts or pine nuts, or you could use a rice milk that's gluten-free. With the paddle attachment, we'll emulsify oil and the flax mix. Then add the sugar. And the vanilla. This is is a nice base for our cookie. Mix the dry ingredients in a separate bowl and whisk them together. Cocoa powder, sorghum flour, hazelnut flour. You could also use rice flour or almond flour. Amaranth flour, arrowroot, baking powder, and a little salt. I'm going to whisk these together until they're incorporated. Mix the dry ingredients with the wet ingredients and alternate with the cashew milk. Different flours have different moisture content, so this is a good time to look at the batter and make sure it's stiff enough to be a cookie. If it's too stiff, just add a little more cashew milk. If it's not stiff enough, add a little more sorghum flour. Just roll them into balls and dip them into organic cane sugar. I'm baking them on a silpat because the surface comes out perfectly and because they won't stick. These bake in a 350-degree oven for 14 minutes.
I love these.
Mmm. With these brownies, everybody gets a corner because they're baked in a muffin pan. Most of the gluten-free brownie recipes that I found contain fruit. I prefer not to have fruit in my brownies, and this recipe does not contain fruit. We start by mixing tahini, oil, and lecithin together with the paddle on the mixer. We'll emulsify these ingredients for about 3 minutes. This is emulsified for 3 minutes. See how it looks like an egg? Add the maple syrup. Organic cane sugar. Decaf coffee crystals added to the water. Coffee enhances the flavor of chocolate, so I like to add a little bit of coffee to the chocolate recipes. And vanilla. Mix the dry ingredients together in a separate bowl, starting with sorghum flour, tapioca flour, cocoa powder, almond meal, xanthan gum, and salt. Whisk them together until they're blended. Combine the dry ingredients with the wet ingredients. By the way, this dough tastes really good. muffin pan with an oil spray. And then put the mix in each little pan. This is a great way to allocate portions. Let the pan sit on an ice pack for about 30 minutes to give the gluten-free flours a chance to bloom. Bake these in a 350-degree oven for 25 minutes. After they cool, go around the edges with a dull knife and pop them out of the pan.
These are crisp on the outside and chewy on the inside. I love these.
Me too, Cookie. This custard is rich and thick and has a complex taste. Serve it to your friends and ask them what they think it is. No one ever guesses it's made of cashews, but you'll get rave reviews. You start with cashews and blend them until they become a powder. Add the water, Kahlua, maple syrup, cocoa powder, decaf coffee crystals, vanilla, and just a tiny bit of salt. Blend until smooth. Taste. This would be the time when you would adjust the taste, the flavors, but this tastes pretty good to me. You know, this would make great hot chocolate the way it is right now if you just heated it a little. Pour the mixture into a saucepan and heat. This is a heat diffuser. When it gets hot, I'm going to turn it down to medium and put the heat diffuser underneath the saucepan. Cashews contain a lot of fat and can burn and scorch really easily. So you want to put the heat diffuser underneath and keep it moving with a whisk. This is cooked about 25 minutes. It takes a little longer with the heat diffuser, but it's safe to cook it that way. I think it's about done, and there's two ways to tell. The first way is to check to see if it coats the back of a spoon. See how nice and thickly this coats the back of a spoon? That's a good indication that it'll set up. The other way to tell if it's done is if it leaves tracks when you whisk it. See those tracks? That's a good indication that it's done. This will set up like a custard when it's refrigerated, and it also makes a great frozen treat if you put it in the freezer for about an hour. Pour it into a serving dish, and since this is hot and it's glass, I'm going to pour it slowly so the glass can get warm. And chill it for several hours, and then it'll be ready to serve. You know, before you serve anything to company, you really ought to taste it first. So, Mmm. I taste chocolate and Kahlua and coffee, and the mouthfeel is wonderful. I hope you've enjoyed our program today. I am devoted to showing people how to cook without gluten or dairy and with low or no cholesterol. I believe it is possible to cook without products that cause problems and to create dishes with alternative ingredients that rival those with traditional ingredients. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to write to me at info@alternativecook.com. For a listing of ingredients used in the DVDs or to order more DVDs, please visit our website at www.alternativecook.com. I look forward to seeing you in another program.
Bye.
No gluten.